Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's your host, Arlette, and we are joined here today by Eddie and Jourdan. Welcome. How are y'all feeling?
Good. Thank
Good,
you.
good.
Thank you.
Good, good. It's good to have you guys back. We had you on episode 55 of Pop the Balloon or Find Love, where you guys ended up matching. Is it a yes for you for him?
Yes.
And is it a yes for you for her?
Yes.
We got a match! I'll take the mic. All right, get your girl. Y'all can go on off. Make some noise, ladies. All right. So on that episode, Jourdan, there was a lot of buzz going on about you in the comments. They were like, man, this girl got questions for days. Is she really interested in the guy or does she just want to talk? And then I guess there were a lot of comments like, oh, see, therapists are always trying to analyze people. Like, did you see those comments and what did you think about them?
I did see the comments. But you want to know what, Arlette? I'm not clearing anything up for anybody.
Mm,
I feel like I represented myself well. I feel like I was authentically myself. And so if that rubbed you the wrong way or you didn't like it, you probably just don't like me. And I don't have to clear that up for anybody. At the end of the day is gonna end. It is what it is. So
okay. All right, Jourdan. And then Eddie, for you, there were comments because at the last round, it was between Jourdan and the other young lady who was standing first. She had like a red dress. There were a lot of comments saying, "Oh, he should have went with the girl with the red dress," and this, that, and the third. Were you able to see those comments, and did you kind of reflect back on it? Like, what did you think about that?
Um, yeah, no, I definitely saw the comments on that. In retrospect, I mean, I went with who I connected with the most. We only have like a small amount of time to get to know each other, but
Yeah.
cool with what I did. It's fine.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right, good. So let's go ahead and just hop right on in to, the whole reason of why everyone comes on to join this catch up. So, since you guys ended up matching, have you gone on a date?
we
Yeah.
did. We did.
Oh, okay. Tell me all about it. Whoever wants to go first, who wants to jump in?
Eddie can go first.
Yeah, so we matched and we spoke a little bit
Hmm.
offset, and then we went well first. Jordan had a gift for you, so we went back to our hotel to pick that up, and then afterward, both of us were not from Arizona, so we were trying to figure out like what's a good place to eat, and then ultimately we landed on Fleming's, which was like 15 minutes away. We went, had a good dinner, and then after that we had hung out a little bit after.
Okay, nice. Thank you for my gift, by the way, Jordan, for Mother's Day.
Yes,
Really
yes.
appreciated
Happy Mother's
it.
Day.
Thank you. And so, how was that first date for you, Jordan?
He kind of skimmed over a couple of things. Like one, like he said, we're both not from Phoenix, but he was really intentional about finding a nice place for us to go. I think he asked what type of food I like, and then we both
Hmm.
kind of settled on steak, and then he was really intentional about finding a good spot. So I appreciated that. Um, and yeah, like you said, we went to dinner and I had a great date actually. I think he was very intentional throughout the date. I think he did a lot of things to try to accommodate to me and get to know me and things like that. So I had a overall good first date with him.
Okay.
So
Okay. And you said you felt like he skimmed over a couple of things. What did he skim over?
well, I'm saying he didn't mention like how intentional he was about finding the place. He
Okay.
he he did the research to find the place and like so because we both didn't really know, but he put in a lot of effort to finding a decent place for us to go to. So
Good. Okay. I'm glad that first date went well. So, how long were you guys in Arizona? Was it just that one night and then you went back the next day, or did you guys hang out again after that while you were here?
Uh, we both we both left that next day, so
Okay.
that's the Saturday when we recorded. The next day, both of us had a flight out.
I see. Okay. And where are you guys both located again? Just so I can have it for
I'm
reference.
in Texas. He's in Alabama.
Alabama. Okay. All right. So when you guys went back home, how was the communication? Have you been keeping in touch with each other, talking, texting, FaceTime?
Eddie.
Well, we had our date And then afterward, we had a conversation on the phone the
Okay.
next day, and that's kind of, where things ended. Um, so yeah.
Okay. Why are things ending if you guys said the first date was good?
So in retrospect, it was a few things that had happened during the date, that ultimately, I had made. Well, we had talked on the phone, but ultimately I had made a decision not to move forward. And I can definitely go in deep detail about it if needed, but also, Jordan had her take. So me and Jordan, we had a really good conversation. We
Hmm.
spoke for about 2 hours, after the date and everything, and recapped everything because I kind of had a different viewpoint on how some things went during the date, and then Jordan had her viewpoint too. But ultimately, some things had rubbed me the wrong way during the date.
Okay.
Um, we talked about it, but then ultimately, I just had to go with, I guess, my initial like gut feeling.
Okay. So was it a mutual agreement? And we'll kind of get into those details a little bit later. But was it a mutual agreement or you kind of just you saw those red flags or whatever it was that you saw and you kind of pulled back?
Um, so I wouldn't necessarily phrase it as like red flags, but I would
Okay.
say, kind of just compatibility wise, I saw some things that uh, I felt like may have been challenging had we continued to pursue it. And
Okay.
because it was a strong feeling for me, I decided, we had a conversation about it. And, I, being respectful of her time, I just knew how I felt. And I just wanted to be cognizant of those feelings. And, we had a conversation about it. And, ultimately, we stopped talking after that. So we hadn't talked since the Sunday.
Okay.
So she's asking you, was it a mutual decision?
No.
It wasn't so it was more so like you
I disagree
decided.
with that.
Okay, let's hear from you, Jordan, then. What happened?
Um, well, I think there was truth to what he said. There was things on the date that rubbed him the wrong way, as well as there were things that rubbed me the wrong way.
Hmm.
Um, and we spoke about those things on the phone. And I don't want to speak for Eddie. I don't mind speaking about them here, but I think it was a mutual decision for sure, because he spoke about the things that he didn't like. I spoke about the things that I didn't like, and we didn't really come to a resolution with those things.
So what were those things? Yeah.
Um, would you like to start, Eddie, or would you like me to?
Oh, you can go ahead.
I'll start. Um, so I would say the first kind of mishap we had was, I think, and Eddie mentioned this to me. He was kind of offended that this was um before we went into dinner.
Hmm.
He was kind of, I had a bottle in my car and we were going to take a shot before going in to dinner. And I asked him not to put his lips on the bottle. I asked him to waterfall it. And that rubbed him the wrong way. And this is what I mean by, I think it was mutual, right? That rubbed him the wrong way, rightfully so. That's how he feels. But I wouldn't have done that any differently. I just met this person on set 5 seconds ago. I'm not comfortable sharing a drink with that person. So I would say that was the first thing, going into dinner. I'll let Eddie kind of speak to that, and then I guess you can talk about the second thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think we talked about it, during the date, you mentioned how, that's just, how you are, you don't you're really particular when it comes to like I guess drums and everything like that. So like when we had talked on Sunday, that wasn't really a thing that was like rubbed me the wrong way, I would say. I did ask about it, but that's kind of it was kind of petty. It wasn't nothing to where I was like, okay, I'm not gonna talk to you because you wouldn't drink after me. So but I did mention that, so I see where you're coming from. I would say for me, like the first thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I would say is like initially after we'd matched, we had talked to BM a little bit, after, coming off set.
Hmm.
and he was just talking to us a little bit about, what to do next. Giving us offering us some advice on, how to approach things. And then, during that conversation, you had mentioned, something about an event that some of the previous contestants was putting on in Atlanta. When he was kind of talking about more about like what we should do moving forward. That was just something that caught my attention. I was just trying to figure out like the relevance of that, I guess, given that we were talking more about like next steps with me and you talking. So personally, like that's the first thing that I would mention. Um,
Okay.
and then I would say that the second thing would be, you know, and I own up to this as well. Like I hadn't really communicated that I didn't want to. I wanted to like more so get to know you one on one, and uh, basically we had a moment where it was an option for us to kind of like go out with more like a group of people,
Hmm.
and I felt
Well,
like we
if
wanted
you're
to
gonna bring
do.
it up, tell the details. If you're gonna bring it up, be transparent about it. Tell the details. Don't.
Well, yeah, I mean, I am being transparent, but so basically it was two other people that were on the show that ended up, I guess, connecting. Like I said, I,
Hmm.
I don't really know the details on, because we hadn't really talked to them. But basically, it was we were considering doing like a double date,
Okay.
and I hadn't really expressed to Jordan that that's not really what I wanted to do.
Mm.
But Jordan had and what the way I looked at it, you seemed like you were more interested in doing that than a one on one. Is kind of how I interpreted it.
Okay. Okay. I see here. And then so just to kind of touch on some points. So you said when BM was talking to you guys, you said she mentioned something about a trip that was coming up or something with like other contestants, and what did that say for you? Like it was like her intentions weren't right? Is that what you were getting from that, or
Well, I mean, and this is like I said, this is just my interpretation of it. I just was kind of confused, like why that was coming up now when we just matched and we were getting to know each other, and the I guess the subject that was at hand was like the next steps for what we should be doing and how we
Mhm.
should approach getting to know each other, and then that topic kind of came up. So initially, like, kind of you know just made me sit back a little bit and think about it.
Okay. Okay, Jordan, we can hear from you. If you want to touch on any of
Yes.
those points he said, yeah.
Absolutely. So, we matched, and then after we matched, I actually asked if he wanted to go into the other room because I know when you're still filming, you have to be kind of quiet in that room. So, I
Mhm.
actually initiated that one on one time between us. And as I was grabbing my stuff, another contestant, a woman, she said, "You guys should go on a double date with them." And before I ever agreed to it, I looked at him and I asked him and I said, "Would you like to do that?" He said yes. And so then we go in the separate room, and then BM comes up and talks to us, and he was telling us kind of about giving us advice and things like that. And then
Mhm.
I was talking to BM. This was not a conversation that I was trying to tell you about. I wanted to make sure, and BM can attest to this. There's an event that is kind of associated with you all's name, and I wanted to make sure that BM was aware of it. I wasn't talking about the trip. And then after that, um, you guys were done filming, and I was going to get the young lady's number who we were supposed to do a double date with, which
Mhm.
he then told me, actually, I don't really know if I want to go on the double date. And I said, okay, that's fine. We don't have to. And we didn't.
Mhm.
So, which we talked about this on the phone. Again, like I said, why I feel it was mutual, we didn't really come to a resolution. I don't see how I wasn't valuing our one-on-one time. I initiated in the beginning by pulling us aside from where you guys were filming so that we can talk. We talked for maybe like 20 minutes before BM came up to us, and then we talked to BM for maybe 10 minutes, and then I talked to BM about this trip just to make sure he was aware of it.
Mm.
Um, And then after, as soon as he told me, you know what, I think I want to just do a date with us, there was no opposition for me whatsoever. I was okay. The only reason I agreed to the double date was because in front of the group, when I said, would you like to do that? He said yes. Um, so I didn't mind going on a date with him. I'm a very direct person. If I wanted to go on the double date or I wasn't comfortable going on a date with him, just the two of us, I would have said that. But I was comfortable and I was willing to do so.
Hmm.
And again, from my perspective, I don't think that I was valuing a double date over our one on one date. And also, as far as the event, that really wasn't even a conversation for you.
Well, we were all like sitting down, like we were all sitting down, and before you brought that up, the topic was, hey, you guys just matched, how y'all feeling, and then BM was like offering some advice on what we would do next, and then you brought that up. So that's why I said
Well,
like,
yeah.
So Eddie, you would have preferred, since I know Jourdan, you're saying that was a conversation between you and BM. I think for Eddie, he felt like it came out of nowhere because at that time you guys were talking about your matching. So Eddie, for you, would you have preferred if she kind of pulled BM off to the side to discuss that? Is that kind of like what you're getting at?
um, yeah, I mean, for me, it was just, the meeting was about like, I guess previous contestants like meeting up to do a meet and greet and stuff. And
Mm.
like for me, I was just like, um, you know, what's the purpose of that? Like we trying to like connect, not really like, turn up, I guess, with everyone like other contestants. So like that just made me question like, okay, well, is this like a regular thing that happens, or, is, that's kind of like how I took it.
Okay. All right. Jourdan, were there any other things that came up for you when you guys had this conversation that you want to bring up?
Um, sure. Do you want to go in chronological order? Because I think he has some other things he wants to say before um, the thing that I found distasteful.
Yeah, you just go ahead and then we'll help back on over to him if he wants to backtrack as well.
Okay. Um, Correct. BM was talking to us, giving us advice specifically about spending alone time together, which is why I think when BM walked away is when Eddie told me, hey, I actually want to do the date by ourselves, which, like I said, I didn't have any opposition to. I said, okay, that's fine. And I did get the girl's number, and I actually texted her and said that me and Eddie are actually going to go do this. And so, um, again, I don't really appreciate you kind of pushing a narrative that I was trying to party with people in Atlanta. To be clear, I'm from Atlanta and I'm going to Atlanta that week for my sister's graduation. So I'm happy to be in the same city that I'm from at the same time that this event is going on. To be clear, I'm there for my sister's graduation and visiting my family, which I told you about. So I don't appreciate you pushing a narrative because everything that I'm about to say is the truth and it's not going to shine a light that's not authentic to who you are. Um, but to answer your question, Arlette,
Hmm.
one of the things that really stood out to me, and I think also stood out to Eddie, this is one of the things that he brought up on the phone call as well. He wanted to go to a club after dinner, which I didn't mind. I'm not going to sit here and act like that was an issue for me. It wasn't, which I'm just bringing that up to say it's funny how he's now saying, well, I don't know, it seemed like she wants to party. It was his idea to go to a club. In fact, at dinner, I told him I was really, really tired. Um, I had actually missed my flight to Phoenix, so I didn't get in until 3 a.m. the day we were filming. So I was
Oh
really, really
wow.
tired. I was falling asleep at dinner, and he actually insisted that I go out to the club with him, which again was not an issue for me at the time. I'm just emphasizing it now because he's trying to push a certain narrative on me. But when we got to the club, we were standing at the bar
Hmm.
and um I'm like facing this way and we're facing each other, so my back's kind of towards we're at the corner of the bar, so my back's kind of towards, where people are walking the crowd, and
Mm-hmm.
a man bumps me hard enough to where I stumble a little bit. I'm wearing heels, but it's a club. People are intoxicated. The guy apologized, whatever, and walked away. After that, Eddie kind of comes behind me, and if I'm facing the bar this way, he's standing directly behind me with his arms on the bar, right? So
Mm-hmm.
he's basically hugging me from behind. And I tell him, I'm like, hey, do you actually mind standing next to me? I'm not really comfortable with you being that close to me. And on the phone the next day, Eddie later said that he couldn't believe that. And I quote, he said, if in any other circumstance, if a girl ever did that, I would never talk to them again. He was super offended by the fact that I didn't want him that close to me. Or, again, another thing he said on the phone, he wasn't sure if I liked him or not. But honestly, again, I just met this person. We were body to body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I could feel him on me. I'll just say that. And it made me uncomfortable. And I vocalized that, and not in a disrespectful way or anything like that. Again, in the moment, he didn't seem super offended. He was just like, oh, I just wanted to make sure nobody else would bump you. I'm sorry. And then he stood next to me. But the next day, he said that that was a big deal for him. And he didn't understand why a woman who likes him or is attracted to him would feel that way, or do that or set that boundary.
Okay. So
Can I?
yeah,
Can
go ahead,
I?
Eddie. You could touch on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like Jordan had said, I feel like some steps are being missed here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a pick back up. After we left the set. So we left the set. We were gonna get the gift for you and come back. And one thing that had came up was faith. So we were just talking about Jordan had mentioned on the show that she wanted a guy that can lead her in her faith. And I had mentioned on the show, I was very clear that I'm still on my walk.
Mm-hmm.
And although I'm not perfect, I am doing things to get closer to God. And for Jordan, she had mentioned that, one of the things was, she needed someone to lead her. So
Mm-hmm.
I was, when that came up, like as we were heading back to the set, I was just kind of like, okay, well, if that was a deal breaker, why didn't you like pop when I was mentioning, hey, I am still, I'm not going to church every single day, I'm doing it online. If that was like the faith thing was like a deal breaker, why was I still considered? So, we kind of skipped some steps here on, why I felt that way with me standing behind Jordan. And, I'll just say in that context of me going behind her is because, like she said, we're by a door. It's a bunch of traffic and guys, walking through and bumping her. So I'm trying to create space between Jordan and like the traffic that's moving through the door. It wasn't like me, and that was the context of that. So I just want to make that clear. That's why I did it, and we talked about that on the phone too. But just how it was delivered, I just feel like that wasn't delivered properly. um the reason that was one thing that I did bring up on our call, but also when we were at dinner, I had brought up, because you had matched before, and we had started talking about that at dinner, and I asked, okay, well, what are some things that you were initially attracted to from me, like physical, or when I first came out, what are some things that kind of captured your attention? Because at dinner I said, I already knew, like when I saw you, what I was attracted to. So I was just trying to get a better understanding of like what you were attracted to about me, right? That's kind of like, so it's multiple things that is unfolding like during this whole date that's making me question, is Jordan really interested in me, or is it just a thing to where we're just matching for the sake of matching. And, so it's multiple things that are happening, right? I also want to mention, one thing that happened as we were going to the club. I mean, I'm sorry, not the club. When we were going to the restaurant,
Hmm.
I'll talk about the valet situation, Jordan. So I had reserved, this is all last minute, we were trying to, get some food. I had reserved, a certain time. And by the time we had reached the restaurant, we were about 5 minutes before like the cutoff for the reservation. So I came around the front and I noticed there was a valet booth there, but I didn't see any valet person. And what I didn't mention to Jordan is like, hey, we may miss our reservation.
Hmm.
So I had parked, a little bit further down, and Jordan is in heels. And I like in the moment I wasn't thinking about that being an issue. I was mainly just thinking about us like missing our potential like reservation. So as we're getting out the car, Jordan kind of like walks ahead of me, doesn't wait on me to go in the restaurant, and that was something that I was, you know, kind of confused about. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, well, this is something else that usually doesn't happen to me on a date with someone. If I'm going into a restaurant, like typically we walk in together. It's not like a thing where you kind of like walk off. And then when I had mentioned to Jordan, like, hey, like, can you slow down? She was just like, okay, well, I walk kind of slow, but she didn't really tell me in that moment. So it's kind of like, I had some times where I hadn't really expressed how I felt during the date too. So I'm not just saying it was like one way, but you know, in that moment she didn't mention like, "Hey, well, my feet hurt. Can you just valet?" For me, that wouldn't have been an issue. Like, but those. So that's one thing that happened too. So like, as these things are like unfolding in the night, I'm thinking to myself like, is she actually interested in me or not? Right.
So
So I just want to give a
Can
little
I
bit
say
more
something?
context with
Can
that.
I say
hold
something?
on 1 second, Jordan. So, Eddie, when you had asked her the questions about, what she found interested in you, or what she found interesting in you, if she was attracted to you, did she respond and give you
Yeah,
any?
yes, she did.
Okay.
Absolutely. So Jordan explained to me that, physical, like she doesn't go for the physical, like straight off the
Okay.
bat. She did mention that. She doesn't go for the physical, and she mainly goes for like I guess, the person's like personality, and if it's a match
Character.
there,
Hmm.
character, and if it's a match there, and like for me, like for me to want to get to know someone, there has to be some level of attraction there. So I was just trying to pick her brain a little bit to like figure out like, okay, like is there some level of attraction like physically there, like between us, like, and if so, like what were those things? And at
Okay.
dinner, like, she didn't really say, okay, yeah, I like your smile, or I liked your hair or how you were dressed. Like it wasn't really anything I was getting. And like my love languages, are physical touch and words of affirmation. So like when I wasn't really hearing anything from her, on that, it kind of made me like doubt, if there
Her
was really a
interests.
connection on her end.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was multiple things that were unfolding during the night. It wasn't just me standing behind her in the club. All these things were happening that had me kind of like guessing, like, okay, like, is she really interested or not?
Okay. And Jordan, go ahead. You wanted to ask something.
Yeah. I didn't say that you were just standing behind me, groping me in the club. I said that somebody walked by and bumped me. By the way, one person bumped me. Multiple people were not bumping me. And I also said that I didn't say it to you in a disrespectful way or anything like that. And you took it very in person. You took it very endearingly, and you did as I asked. I didn't paint it that way at all. But I think you're leaving out key details in what you're saying to paint a certain narrative about me. For example, I never told you that my feet hurt. I never ever said that. And in fact, I did tell you on the date the issue I had with the valet. The issue I had with the valet, and I remember what time our reservation was. It was at 8:30, and we got there well before 8:30. We were not running late for the reservation. In fact, we had enough time for you to circle the parking lot 10 times looking for a parking spot. So we were not running late. We passed valet, and if we were running late, would it not be quicker to get valet? My feet were not hurting. What I told you on the date, and I did express myself on the date. I said that I just don't think that it is a good way to court a woman on a first date that is dressed up wearing heels. Valet is an option and available, and you opt to park 100+ feet away from the restaurant after looking for a parking spot for, I don't know, I'm not, 10 minutes is an exaggeration, but let's say 5 to 7 minutes, right? I did express that to you on the date, and it wasn't because my feet hurt. I can walk in heels. My feet didn't hurt. For me, it was more of a gesture, right? Like I would have preferred that gesture, that courting. And I expressed that to you
After the
on the
fact,
date.
though, you expressed it
I
after we left the restaurant. You didn't say it like when I was
I
parking.
expressed it after we left the restaurant because we were passing valet again. Um, I didn't want to express it in that moment because one, you had just spent 5 to 7 minutes looking for a parking spot, and I just didn't feel like it was the right moment to nag you about, well, you should have valeted. So it wasn't about me not wanting to express my feelings. For me, it was being emotionally intelligent to know when is the right time to bring this up to you. And also, I didn't just leave you at the car. We walked, and then remember, my lights were on. It was my rental car. My lights were on, and you went back to check if the lights were cut off, or because none of us really knew it was a rental car. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So we were walking together, and then you went back to check if the lights were off, and I kept walking. Um, so I didn't just get out the car and leave you or anything like that. We walked together. You went back to the car. And did I wait for you when you went back to the car? No, I walked to the front of the restaurant and I waited for you at the front of the restaurant. And again, like the theme I keep saying, that's not something I would have changed, right? And he took offense to that, but that's not something that I would have changed. Also, in the restaurant, he did, and this is something we spoke about on the phone, which is why I'm so surprised that you're leaving details out that are pertinent to what you're saying. He did not specifically ask me, what are you physically attracted to? He did not ask me that. And the reason I know that is because on the phone, he did express to me, he's like, you didn't name anything physical that you were attracted to. And I was like, well, if I knew that you wanted me to name physical things, if you had specified that or you had asked that, I would have told you that. And then when we were on the phone, I told him the physical things that I was attracted to. But in the restaurant, he specifically asked, he said, what were your first thoughts when I walked around that corner on the show?
Hmm.
What were you first thinking? That's a very ambiguous question. And to his point, I'm not a super physical person. I really look at someone's, and not just their character, but who they are as a man, how they carry themselves. And this was kind of my answer in the restaurant. Like, I really like how you carried yourself, how you spoke. You seemed like a really kind soul. I was saying things like that, which, in retrospect was not what he was looking for, right? He was looking for me to name physical things, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but I didn't not name physical things because I'm not physically attracted to you. You didn't specifically ask me that. And when you asked what my attraction is, I was telling you what my initial attraction is.
Okay. All right. Was there anything else that had came up that kind of let you guys know that this is not going to be a match?
Um, so for me, like, so in the club, there was a comment you had, where you had mentioned that some guys were asking for your number, and you had said, you hadn't given them the number because you were with me because we just met. You said you hadn't given them the number because you weren't interested in them. You do remember that?
Yeah. Um, and again, when we spoke on the phone, my reason in telling you that we were standing at the bar and he went to the bathroom and the people that asked for my number were in the section behind us. And so when he came back to the bathroom, I was letting you know as a man, hey, the people behind us did come up to me and ask for my number. So that was out of a courtesy, which is like I told you on the phone, why I told you that. I felt like you were owed the respect to know that when you left, these people 2 feet away from us came up and tried me or tried to get my number. That was out of a courtesy to you.
So for me, that's not how I kind of received that because, just how it was phrased, I guess the phrasing of it, what you said, you know, I hadn't really received it like that. You were saying it wasn't because you were with me, we already went to dinner, we matched, all this kind of stuff. And you said like because we just met, the reason you didn't give him the number wasn't because we were together on this date. It was because like there was no, for lack of better words, I think you had said, you didn't have you wouldn't have a connection with him, or you weren't attracted to him, or something along those lines. And I just was like, for me, I wouldn't really, I wouldn't have said it that way. So, that part of it was, just kind of strange to me, like how it was phrased.
I mean, I didn't say it that way either. What
Do
I
you
said
do you remember how
was
you said
when
it?
I do. What I said was when you came back from the bathroom, I said, "Hey, just so you know, the people in that section over there asked for my number." And you said, "Oh, well, did you give it to them?" I said, "No, but to be clear, we're not together, and so I did not give it to them because I feel like we're a couple. I didn't do it out of respect that we're on a date together." That's what I said.
Okay. Was there anything else for you, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, I guess since he wants to air it all out, let's talk about it. Um, so we're in my rental car, and after the club, um, he asked me if he can sleep on my couch, and I tell him that I'm in a hotel. I don't have an extra couch, but I do have an extra bed. If you're okay sleeping on the other bed. Um, and he says, yeah, that's fine. So we drive back to my hotel. And when we get to my hotel, I change my mind. I say, actually, I think you should just get an Uber to your hotel. And that was another thing that he brought up on the phone that he took offense to, that he didn't like. And that's something I will take accountability for. I did renege on my offer,
Mm-hmm.
and that's on me. However, I do feel like I have the right to do that. But I can see how thinking you're going in my head, if your intention is to sleep on the other bed, why would that be a talking point for you the next day onto why you had an issue with our date? Does that
Mhm.
make sense? Like, what would be the difference between you sleeping in your Airbnb or you sleeping in the bed in my room, if that was your intention, right? Um,
Can I
and yeah,
chime
he
in
brought
on
it up
that,
on the
or
phone. He brought it up on the phone the next day, and said that rubbed him the wrong way. He did not like that. So
can I comment on that?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So for me, so we had left the club about like 2 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what I would mention too, like as we were hanging out, there was a couple that had approached us, and we started talking about the show. Remember? And they had offered to go to another, place to hang out afterward, right? And at that moment, I had mentioned to you, Jordan, I had said, well, hey, I don't really want to go. I would much rather want to, hang out with you. And then, you had said, well, I hadn't really wanted to go to the club in the first place, right? I did it because you wanted to go. So I want to hang out, with these people. It's only fair, for you to show the same courtesy, right?
that's not
Right.
what I said. I said that you can Uber home because I drove my car. I said I understand you don't want to go, but I did come to the club for you. I do want to go with the young lady and her boyfriend. If you don't want to go, you don't have to. That's what I said.
So for me, it's like this keeps coming out like throughout the day where, it happened earlier, about, going out with people, and then now this is like the end of the night, and then it's coming up again, like going out with other people, and then there's a conversation, about you, like, instead of like us talking a little bit with BM about, the next steps in like getting to know each other, a conversation is being brought up about an event that you're attending in Atlanta. It's like all of these things are running through my head. And I said this on the phone, like when we spoke, all of these things are running through my head. And it's why I'm having like doubts that, okay, there may not be a connection on your end. And, also I would mention, after the valet situation, I made it a point, moving forward to make sure that we had the transportation to the club, like there and back, But as far as like the the hotel situation, like truthfully, and this was late, but but the way I remember it is, I think you had mentioned, hey, it's late, would if you wanted to sleep at my hotel, you can go
No,
on
no, 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 no. You asked me if you could sleep on my couch. And that's what I'm so you're entitled to feel how you feel, but it's been multiple times throughout this entire interview where you have misquoted me or said things that I didn't say that create a certain narrative. Let's tell the truth. You asked to sleep on my couch. And I remember that because I don't have a couch. You said, "Hey, can I sleep on your couch?" You said couch because you're sleeping in an Airbnb and you have a couch. You said, "Hey, can I sleep on your couch?" And that was after, by the way, we decided not to go out with that couple. So every time that you wanted to be just us two, I obliged, by the way.
Is there a reason you didn't want it to be just you two?
I didn't not want it to be just us two. The first double date was not my idea. Another woman suggested that, and I asked, did he want to do that? And he originally said yes. And then when he said no, we didn't do it. And
Mhm.
then when the couple came up to us, they were really, really sweet. They're actually big fans of yours, Arlette. And and she bought us a couple shots. I bought her and her boyfriend a couple shots, and she said, and the club we were at was closing, but she was
Mhm.
like, the one across the street is still open if you guys want to come over here. And again, I asked him, and this time he did say no, and I didn't ask him to come or say that he should come. I said, well, I didn't want to come to the club in the first place, but if you don't want to come, I understand. You can feel free to Uber to your Airbnb. Um, and then ultimately, I decided not to go with them.
Mhm.
And which is at which point he asked if he could sleep on my couch. And
Okay.
I did say yes in the moment, or I said yes to him sleeping in the other bed. I did say yes, but then when we got to my hotel in the parking lot, I was just like, you want to know what? Um, I I think you should just go home.
What changed, I guess, if we could ask, from when you said yes to then you guys getting there?
Um, Truthfully, I think that um I think, and this is gonna sound like a cop out, but I think when I originally said yes, it was in conversation, and I was just like, oh well, yeah, if you want to sleep on the other bed, and then but then on the ride home, I was thinking about it, and in my head, which I take accountability for. I never should have agreed to it, so I won't say anything changed, or he certainly did not do anything in the ride home or anything. That was just on me. I thought about it and I was like, I didn't mean that. Like I did not mean to agree to that. So that's what I mean when I say I take accountability for that. I agree to something that in the moment, I guess, that I just shouldn't have. And I reneged on it. So
Okay. All
Um,
right. Yeah.
Also, I guess why I had brought it up in our conversation the following day is because the time of night we're talking about now is like 3:30 in the morning,
Mhm.
and at this point, we get back, and like Jordan said, she has every right to, change a decision. Like
Mhm.
there was no contention between us two when we had that conversation. I said that's 100% fine. I'm gonna go ahead and get the Uber. Is it cool if I just hang out here until the Uber arrives? She said, yeah, that's fine. And she waited, she didn't go upstairs. She kind of like waited, and then that was really kind of her. She waited until the Uber came, but for me it was like, okay, we both kind of like really tired at this point, and it's just like, okay, now I'm having to drive, another 30 minutes, you know
you got an
um
Uber.
yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Now I'm having to be in an Uber for another 30 minutes to get home, so I'm not reaching home until, like early in the morning, so you know, I'm saying like all of these things are happening, and the next day when we had, connected like on the phone and everything,
Mhm.
I thought, and I told you this on the phone, I thought that you weren't having fun of the date at all, and that you were telling me like, hey, can we talk a little bit for a minute? I thought you was gonna say, hey, well, this ain't working out. I'm not feeling the connection. That's kind of like what I went into that call with, and I had to express that to you, and kind of when you had mentioned like, hey, well, I'm actually calling because I wanted to see if you would be interested in coming to Atlanta, like in 2 weeks or so, like when you were planning that event for one of your friends.
You
I was
brought
kind
that
of
up on set. You brought that up on set. You
what?
said you said you'll be in Atlanta in 2 weeks. That's a 2 hour drive from Alabama. You said that.
So I
No,
think he's saying on
no,
the
no, no,
phone
no,
call.
no. On the phone call when we were talking, remember you said you had a boxer friend that you were planning a party for, and you said that the party's for them, but if you were in
His birthday
Atlanta,
dinner. His birthday
okay,
dinner.
well, right, but you were saying that you would have invited me to that. The context of what I was trying to get at is I thought the phone conversation was going to be, hey, this ain't working out, because based on how the night went, that's how I interpreted it. I was very surprised when you had said like, hey, no, I actually wanted to continue to get to know you. That was surprising to me based on how the night went.
So were you guys, by the end of the night, were you both already kind of feeling a disconnect?
I would say yes. I think, and I correct me if I'm wrong, Eddie. I think for him, the disconnect was to the point where he didn't want to continue getting to know each other. For me, I did feel a disconnect, but I looked at it as one date, and I was willing to get to know him more.
And Eddie, what about for yourself? Were you kind of already feeling that by the end of the night?
Um, so Well, before I get into the, if it's okay, I don't remember you even mentioning that you felt the disconnect on the phone call that we had. You didn't mention at all that, on your end it was a disconnect. You actually told me that you felt, that this was, you were very surprised with me saying that I didn't want to pursue further because that's not how you interpreted the night. You said that you felt like you had a good night. So you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But
You are, Eddie. I said I was surprised that you felt like I wasn't attracted to you. I was surprised at that, yes. And the disconnect for me was the issue you had with, or you standing behind me in the way that you did. Um, that rubbed me the wrong way, as well as the valet thing rubbed me the wrong way. But again, for me, those weren't, like I said on the phone, those weren't deal breakers for me. I think those were things that um, we could talk about, like you said, when I mentioned the valet thing to you, then when we went to the club, you valeted the car. And so for me, those things weren't deal breakers, but certainly there was things you did on the date that rubbed me the wrong way. But I think I had an overall good date. I think you were very intentional about planning it and finding a place like last minute, like you did. I think you were a gentleman in the club. I think your intentions were right. I think that they just were a little bit too intrusive for me. So I think I liked your intentionality, and so I was willing to get to know you more because of that. So
Okay. And
Um,
so, yeah,
for
go ahead, Eddie.
sorry, to answer your question or that, yeah, I mean, for me, at the end of the night, I figured, after everything had transpired, that was basically it. I felt like how the night went, that there was not really anything else, because my whole thing is like on the first time meeting someone, like you putting your best foot forward, and we're having multiple things that's happening during the night that is making me second guess like should I pursue this further. So by the time the end of the night, I was just like, okay, well, I think this is it. And that's
Mhm.
why I said, I was pretty surprised, like on the phone call, because I figured when we had, I had texted you, good morning, and then you were like, hey, do you have a second to, talk on the phone. I basically thought, that phone conversation was going to be like, hey, I'm not really feeling that connection. I feel like this would be, it.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting to feel a super strong connection within one date. So yeah, I was willing to get to know you more, um, despite certain mishaps. Not because I thought that you know this is going 100% great, but just to try. So
Okay. And so how did that call end? Like, how did you guys end up closing everything out?
amicably, I think, from my end.
Yeah,
So um,
I would
I would
agree with
say,
that.
Okay.
um,
All right. Well, to kind of end this on better notes, let's talk about both of you all. Any projects you may be working on, or anything that you'd like to share with the people that we could support you in any way. Let's start with you, Eddie.
No projects. I do consulting, for anyone that may be interested in real estate or learning more about, how to invest. If that's something that you may be interested in, feel free to reach out.
Okay, nice. And what about you, Jordan?
yeah, and I just want to say we talked a little bit about his consulting business on the day. He's very knowledgeable. If anybody wants to reach out, very personable. So I would highly recommend. Um, but for me, I'm working on scaling my hair care business. I wanted to ask you, Arlette, did you get a chance to use the hair oil yet?
Have not used it yet, but once I do, I will let you know.
I'll be looking forward to your feedback.
I
Thank you.
definitely will let you know. Yes. All right, guys. Well, it is unfortunate that it did not work out between the two of you guys, but I'm glad that you guys did get that time to talk about it, figure out what went wrong for the both of you or whatever it was that you guys just weren't able to see eye to eye on. But I do wish you both the best, when it comes to dating, your career, your businesses, whatever that may be. I honestly do wish you both the best. All
Thank
right.
you,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Of course. And thank you guys at home for tuning in. We'll catch you all next time.